Hi, welcome to the California Avenue podcast. I'm your host, PDR, and I have my wonderful special guest host here today. Her name is Kimberly Brooks, and she's my mother. And today we're going to be talking about letting them go as our topic. And she's going to play us a clip from Bishop T.D. Jakes that pretty much encompasses that spiritually.
Stop chasing people who are leaving. Stop chasing people who don't get it. Stop chasing, trying to get back in your life. People that God is trying to take out of your life, let them go. This is a time in your life that you can no longer continue to grieve about who walked away, who abandoned you, who forsook you, who left you, who walked away. You've got to stand up and recognize that God doesn't need anything that you lost to bless you. God will always use what you've got left. Let them go.
You know, when I first saw this clip, because I'm not really a big person on TikTok and YouTube, all those little short clips and stuff like that. But every now and then I will kind of get on there and just kind of look and see what's going on. But when I ran across this, I thought about you. And what I was thinking is that, you know, how we are very different when it comes to this subject, because I've noticed, you know, over the past few years for sure, that you don't have a problem letting them go and moving on. Whereas for me, I have a hard time not just letting them go. It doesn't even really have to be somebody that's very, very close to me or something like that. It could be something like even a job change. Even if the job is going to be better for me, I still almost grieve leaving that job and moving forward. So, you know, I know that this is something that I am going to have to work on because, you know, what Bishop is saying is quite true. You know, quit hanging on to that. And I don't know exactly how to do that. I was hoping maybe you could share some ideas or some thoughts about how you do it.
Mm, I know we've talked about this off the record a lot, if I may share, is that we have a family where we once, at least when I was younger, used to be all very close. And we were very all tight knit and we were very active in our family functions like family reunions and other types of celebrations. And then I noticed around 2010, so I was what, a sophomore that year, and
Okay.
I noticed one by one, and I honestly can't remember which one started, but one by one, a lot of my relationships with family was like the first to take a hit. Where in the beginning, I tried to hold on. I tried to be like, even though I'm being treated a certain way that I don't like, and that honestly is damaging to my mental health because I'm not feeling respected, I'm not feeling heard. And even at times, because of those things, I wasn't feeling loved, that it just really had me like almost spiraling. And at some point, I had to learn to let go. And so it went from me holding on to like letting go. But then it was like I let go and then backtrack and then, rekindle that relationship because it's my family. It's like people I grew up around, people that I've always had a relationship with, and I don't really know any different as in not having a relationship with them. So even though I was able to let go for a period, I wasn't able to stay letting go. And it just kind of was, brought back to the surface of why that relationship didn't work out. And so it put me back in that space to choose again. And it wasn't until I moved away in 2017 where I moved away from an environment that more so had me around family, not always by choice. Like when I was living with you, I was forced to be around that because it's your house. If you want your family over there, they're going to be over there. That's just how I go. I had no control over that. It's not my house. But
Uh-huh.
a lot of what I was experiencing, especially with everything else going on, being a full-time student, working at times, I was working two jobs. and managing these dysfunctional relationships, it just like, again, it was eating me up. But when I was able to move away and I didn't have to be around certain people, it more so taught me how to like actually let go, because you're not always in each other's face because they come by the house, or maybe you go to grandma's house for whatever reason, and it gives you that space that you otherwise wouldn't have had unless you got your own place, which at the time I wasn't making enough money to get my own place and pay for a
Mhm.
car at that time as well. So it was like all these different factors, and it more so solidified what he was saying for me to not only just like um let go in the moment, but let go, period. Like, don't dance on it. And
Mhm.
to be very clear, do I like the fact that I don't have relationship with most of my family? No, I don't. I don't like that. But I don't like it more when it affects me to a point where I'm not myself and I'm
Mhm.
not happy and I'm not fed spiritually, emotionally, mentally. In other words, I'm not supported in a way where I'm more empowered to be the person and woman I'm meant to be. And so I had to make decisions, thankfully, with that change of environment that was in my best interest. Because at the end of any day, for anybody, you have to be good, because you wake up with yourself, you go to sleep with yourself, you operate day to day with yourself. And if you're not showing up
Mhm.
as your best self for whatever reason, whatever outside influence is impacting that, that you're allowing to impact that because you choose who
Mhm.
you want to be around, you have to be accountable at some point. Because the people that's doing whatever they're doing to make you feel some kind of way, they're going to be them. You have no control over who that is, and who they are and how they act. That's not at all in your control. But what is in your control is who you allow into your space, what energy you allow close to you that just kind of spills off on you. And I've been working at, and I've been perfecting being able to let go no matter what the situation is. I don't care how much I've told you about myself. I don't care um how long we've had a relationship. If I feel like the relationship isn't serving me, then I must move on. Now, the trial and error phase with that when it came to friendships was a little bit easier because we don't have that same history. I don't know them from birth, right? So it was less of a history, it was less of a relationship in that regard, and so it made it easier. Plus, I will say one thing I got out of my adolescence, really not even just adolescence, out of my the rearing from child to adult, is that, when you make a decision to trust yourself and to believe in what it is you believe is right, and to stand on it and not apologize for what it is that you believe. And so
Mhm.
that mindset also helped me to cultivate the person that I am today. And if I may also be more transparent, me and my mom were talking about um, a situation that happened recently where me and my former co host fell out, and how the way in which it happened, just to be very brief, is that, that day wasn't the best day for either one of us. And it kind of spiraled from the point when we started our both meeting that day and a podcast recording that had been pushed back to the meeting day. And it just was so many different interruptions and things just weren't going as planned. Plus there was also some history from my experience where I didn't always feel respected by my co-host, and I would let a lot of stuff slide, but I actually wasn't letting it go, and not addressing it was also festering it. And it got to a point where I pretty much shut down towards the end of our discussion, and I genuinely just was so zoned on that shut down element, like zoned out, that I didn't realize that my co-host at the time was talking to me and giving me an answer to a question that I had asked her. And I can understand that. I don't know because I haven't talked to her, if she perceived that as me ignoring her, and that's what I assume that is the issue really kind of came to a head from her. But nonetheless, the way that she decided to respond to an issue, it wasn't to communicate with me. It was both to talk at me and almost in a sense get with me, so to speak. Getting with somebody is like checking somebody and then jumping
Mm,
off the call. And
okay.
that completely disturbed me. One, I was shocked to silence when she did it because I didn't expect that from her. And I tried to call her right after she exited the call. She didn't answer, sent me the voicemail, straight to voicemail, sent me a message that I believe to be and experienced as passive aggressive, saying things like, "We can conclude the meeting once I send you the list," which is a list that I asked her for, that she was answering where I had zoned out and didn't hear. And then she said, "You have a good night," which obviously none of that was genuine. She was angry and upset. And my response at the time was like, "Well, let's talk about this when you're ready." But actually, we needed to talk about that sooner because, see, as a business owner and somebody that's doing business with someone, naturally, you want that respect as leadership for anybody that you bring onto your team. And so that, among other things, was missing, like consistency in doing well, consistency in bringing the A game, consistency in being a team player by also helping you pull the weight, not adding to the weight. So there was a lot of things, and that's from my experience, that was lacking. And honestly, that was the nail in the coffin for me. I was like, you know what? After that, I tried to call her again on a day later, a day and some change later, and she also didn't answer. And at that point, it's like, you know what? I'm not gonna chase anybody. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. I'm not gonna fight about it. I ain't gonna argue about it. We can just be done.
Mhm.
And
And like I said,
mhm,
I'm sorry. Go
it's
ahead.
okay. I was just gonna say, like, I wouldn't have been able to be that sure and move forward and really move on if it wasn't for all of those years of practice and preparation. Because let's be very clear too, my former co-host added a lot of value. She's very intelligent, she's beautiful, she has a great sounding voice. I do think that she can be a great person. I think that that didn't show up in her communication, and that was also another issue. So it's like, at some point, you can't keep fighting for something and you're the only one fighting for it. It has to be reciprocated, it has to be equal interest, equal ambition, equal drive, equal passion for something. But I digress. I'll stop there. I'm so sorry. What were you about to say, mama?
I was just going to say that, we are on two different spectrums of letting them go.
Okay.
And when I spoke to you about that situation, even it's ultimately, it really is your decision on who you let into your space, as you say. Um, but coming from the other side of that, I see that just because that person may have been disrespectful at that moment or that time doesn't necessarily mean that that's how they always are, number one. And number two, I believe in chances, where yours is more nope, we're done, cut, we're finished. I believe in chances, even if I'm that person where I give you another chance and you do it again. I feel better about myself that I did try to forgive and move on because I'm a strong person saying that no one ever really forgets but Jesus.
Mhm.
He was the only perfect one. Okay. And I can forgive, though. I can forgive that came off because with everything that was said and explained to me, it's almost as if it's possible that that was just that person's way of tabling something, I would say, like putting it down for now, and then we'll pick it up at another day. And I also believe that just because one person is ready for the conversation doesn't mean that the other person is ready for the conversation. I feel like I've been there myself where something bothered me so much that even though it was 24 hours later, I still am not ready to talk to that person yet. I really believe to each their own that they need in order to prepare, because if you talk to somebody and you're not ready, that's a real good way to become even more disrespectful because you weren't ready. And then you're feeling like that person is pushing you, like, no, you're going to talk to me now. No, it shouldn't be like that. There should be a mutual respect for that. But like I said, you and I are on two different ends of the letting go, because I don't just let you go like that. I don't let you go. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that's super close to me. It can be just an associate, or I'm a teacher, as you know. So when I am working with my colleagues, that sometimes they get out the box, where they'll say or do something that's rude. And as old as they are, with me being as old as I am, I'm like, no, you know better than that. Come on now. You know exactly what you said. It's almost like, how Jesus speaks in parables. And sometimes, if you're not supposed to understand, that actually goes over your head, right?
Yeah.
So when I say go over your head, I'm speaking more as in you don't understand the condescending way, or the it escapes me right now what it's called. But for me, it doesn't go over my head. I understood it exactly how you said it and
Mhm.
what you meant by it when you said it.
Mhm.
So it's more like that, where the conversation with your co-host, where she says that she's going to conclude the meeting. Does that mean conclude the meeting for that day, or does that mean conclude the meeting forever?
And
Don't know.
it wasn't even conclude the meeting. It was like, we're gonna conclude, after I send this email. And before that, just to address how the call ended, was that,
Hmm.
she asked me, because we were talking about topics to talk about, because I'm like, with everything that I have to do in a day, in a week, like, I can't do last minute topics and then try to do the research on top of that. It feels very rushed. It feels very um not efficient, and it's lacking the preparation that would make it better. And so with everything I have going on, I don't have the time, and honestly, sometimes even the capacity to do that in the moment like that, because I'm already like drowning in responsibilities that I have to address at every which angle. And it was a specific question about, what about travel tips? And mind you, at that moment, I had just like, not even at that moment, it was before that, where all I heard her say was hello. And I was like, oh, yes, yes. And like, wide eyed, like, at least I wasn't seeing myself, because I had a window, because we're doing this virtually. I had a window over my call window. And I said, yes. And she was like, well, what about travel tips? Because you said you want to go to Japan. And I was like, just in the moment of what she said, I'm like, well, I haven't been to Japan yet. But I wasn't thinking about the fact that travel tips means traveling anywhere. I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm just now coming back from zoning out. So I wasn't even all the way there in awareness of what she was saying to me. And it was also how she was saying it. She was like, well, you have traveled, and you've traveled moved out of state and you've traveled out of state, so have I. It was like that slow talk, and of course that's disrespectful. I'm not slow. My comprehension is great. I hear you and I understand you at the same time, and I'm engaged. But again, I ignore that. And this is also an example of a lot of other things I ignored that wasn't as severe as that, but it was still not quite respectful and professional in talking with someone that is essentially your boss because you're doing something and committed to something that you chose to commit to under their brand. So they do give
Yeah.
you the direction and they do give you that leadership guidance. And so that comes with respect, just like any job. I can't go to my job and talk slick like that to my boss because one, that's not gonna end well. It just ain't.
Yeah,
With me being
and
black.
that's exactly what I'm talking about right there. That, the way that you compare that to the
Mhm.
job, and this is your business. So
Yeah,
this is a job.
yeah,
So instead, that's how come I say letting them go
yeah.
and cutting them off, was that really the best approach?
Let me tell you.
Because this is your business,
Let me
this
tell you.
is your job. So,
Yeah.
like you just said in your own words,
Mhm.
that leaders of the business and the boss, they're there to, give you the things that you need and to train you. But wouldn't that have been more of a training issue as far as
So let me tell you.
the way
Let me
that
tell you
it
my
could
frame of
have
thinking.
been approached?
Let me tell you my frame of thinking. Yes and no. And I say yes because generally yes, but it also depends on what it is, right? We're talking about professional etiquette, right? Is that that's not professional etiquette to talk to somebody like that. And let me get to the part because I like to try to tell the whole story so we don't leave anything out, especially critical things. And so specifically speaking to how the call ended, it went from her talking slow like that to the next thing I know, and mind you, I'm still not looking at her. I'm just hearing her because I have a window up. So I can't see her because I have Google sitting over the caller window because
Yes,
I'm
I
searching for
understand.
topics myself. And so I can't see her face or anything. So it wasn't even registering to me how serious this had even gotten for her until she just kind of went from that to, you know what, it seems like your energy is off and my energy is about to get off. So I'm gonna get up off of here and just send you the list of topics in an email.
Mm,
And
mhm.
when she did that, it was a pause. And I was shocked. That's where I was shocked to silence. And I went and I'm like closing windows and I'm like, look, and by the time I get to see her, she clicked off right as I saw her. And I was like, I sat there for literally 2 seconds. I pulled my phone up, called her, went straight to voicemail, and that's when that text of, "We can conclude after I send this list, you have a good night." And it didn't even register to me about that message that I'm thinking maybe she's talking about conclude the meeting, not necessarily conclude the business. But going back to address what you were talking about, like training issue, because of what it was not a from my perspective, it was not a issue of I didn't know better. It was, yeah, I'm gonna end on this note. It was intentional from my perspective. It's a I know
Mhm.
better, but I'm gonna talk to you like that because leading up to this, there's been hints that there's a lack of respect. And I know that we've talked about this off the record about how, something's off. And I'm not trying to be over emotional about it. I'm trying to keep it business. A lot of the times that I even ignored it, which I can reflect on that, and I wish I would have addressed each and every time when I felt some offness with that. But
Mhm.
ultimately, it led up to this point from my perspective. That's my observation, hindsight. I feel like not addressing it and the fact that it was done multiple times, like this isn't the first time, this is the first severe time, but there's been minor instances of the same type of behavior that went unaddressed as an I didn't address it on my end of things to let her know like, I don't like that you're talking to me sharp. In other words, not only sometimes what you say, but how you say it. And
Mhm.
yeah, that doesn't jive with me. But again, I'm just keeping it business. I'm like, okay, maybe this is like, I don't know, a personality issue. Maybe just that's just her personality. She's not aware, right? But
Mm.
the more I got to know her, which is over this course of what, 4 months, I started to learn that no, this isn't a I don't know. This is like I know better, but I don't respect you like I respect the people at my 9 to 5. That's my boss. So I feel it's acceptable to talk to you like this, but try to put it in a well, I'm gonna get off of here. As in like at first glance it could look as though I'm tabling it, but it was really like, nah, this is how I'm ending it. And that wasn't
Okay.
fully apparent to me until I called the next day and sent a voicemail, nothing. Because see, had it been the approach of, I'm not really sure what's going on today, but I know that it's really affecting me in a way that I don't want to come off negatively or disrespectful. So let us come together at a different time and day. I'll reach out to you sometime tomorrow. I'd have been like, okay,
Mm.
that's extremely respectful. That's extremely professional. Now, granted, everybody doesn't handle everything the same. However, in that particular business, it's not my responsibility that you show up to like any other job acting the way that you should act. In some
Okay.
instances, I believe that it's just natural that you know better because if you was doing that at your job, I'm sure you wouldn't still have it. That's all I'm saying. And so looking at the whole picture for me is why I came to that assessment. But still, even in feeling how I felt of like, okay, I think I'm going to let this relationship go, I still, in trying to call her, tried to mend fences
Mhm.
just somehow, some way. But also with talking it out with people I trust, I came to the conclusion that works best for me, which is to let it go and move on. Let it go and move
Okay.
on because we both have to be in the fight to want it. And if I'm the only one that's trying to, I'm not saying that you got to talk to me tomorrow, but you haven't even tried to set aside any kind of time or timeline on when you would most likely be able to talk and then follow up, right? It's just a complete shutdown, whatever. Which also leads me to think that maybe at some point you didn't want to do this anymore, and this was your opportunity to, for lack of a better phrasing, set it off and shut it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because you mentioned about how there were signs
Mhm.
before that there was a problem. But this being your business, why didn't you reach out to before
Mhm.
this? When you start seeing those signs originally, why didn't you try to talk to her about what may have been bothering her at that point? I'm just wondering.
I didn't reach out before because I kind of felt like it wouldn't render any positive results. Much like now, right? Where you're not responding in any text at this point, calls at this point, you're just done, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, if I don't feel as though from my interactions with you that we'll reach a resolve, then it's kind of like, even the point? As long as we can keep this cordial and keep this train running, because we were, I felt doing pretty decent. Um,
Mhm.
but again, in hindsight, you start to reflect on the past to date, and you're like, oh, there was a lot of red flags. I think in me wanting to do something so bad to engage my audience and build that audience that this whole relationship, business and otherwise, was rushed, and that's why it crumbled. It didn't have the solid foundation because you didn't take time to build that if it was something you could even build, because you can't force compatibility. You just can't. And so that's where I made the mistake, is that I need to slow down even in my excitement that I meet somebody that I think is a great fit, because they can't just be a great fit for the job. They got to be a great fit for you as somebody that does the job with them. That's extremely
Mhm.
important for that to be successful. And so not only that, as another example, there were some things I did address. Like, we'll have a meeting scheduled and I'm there on time. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, text. "Hey, are you coming to the meeting?" "Oh, yeah, my fault, I'm over at my family house, we having Taco Tuesday." And I'm like, "Now you knew you was having Taco Tuesday, you knew what time this meeting was gonna start, yet didn't really care to coordinate that to where it makes sense." Because again, I'm gonna use the example again. Are you showing up late to work? Are you showing up late to work? Okay, if you're not doing that there, why are you doing it here? Because you have to consider everything. It's not just your time, it's my time. I'm busy too. That 5, 10 minutes could have went to homework. That 5, 10 minutes could have went to my job, doing some after hours work. That 5, 10 minutes could have been used constructively elsewhere. But no, I scheduled this time. I made sure that my schedule was clear to at this time to make it work. And yet I'm the only one treating it seriously. And, her response to me pointing that out, in addition to me pointing it out in the moment, but I did follow up with that because there were other instances where she was late. And I was like, look, if you're not going to be able to make it, just let me know in advance. I'm not going to trip off of that. What I do trip off of is that I get there, you're not there. And I'm getting there before time. So I'm more than just like waiting 5 minutes after. I've been there like 15 minutes before, leading up to it, having the room open so that you could even join in. So it's like now I'm feeling both disrespected in my time, but also as a person. And again, it's a sign like when somebody doesn't show up as they've committed to show up in agreement with you, it's not just a disrespect to your time, it's a disrespect to you. And so when I reflect on the entire relationship, granted, she made some improvements, but it was a lack of consistency. We even talked about that. Like me and her both wanted to be more consistent because there were some things that I could improve on as well as her leadership. But again, it felt like honestly just disengaged. Disengaged, not just even in that realm, but also even in the social realm. We're having meetings, and that was another thing that I noticed at the beginning of that complete breakdown of a
Mhm.
meeting. That at the beginning, you're saying that you were working and you had all these other things, so you're working at the same time and trying to do this meeting, and you
Mhm.
can't give all your attention to either one. And I even
Yeah.
said, we can reschedule. That's totally fine. Your 9 to 5, that pays your bills. I want you to have that and have that well. But I also want you, when you here, to focus on this. And so a non-confrontational way of me addressing it is like, you sure you just don't want to reschedule? Totally fine. That's my tone. That's my approach. No, I'm sure I can multitask. But she said that as I was saying what I was saying, which was another thing. She had a habit of talking over me. Not a big fan of that. In some cases, it's not a big deal. But like when it's so consistent that you notice it, again, it's a lack of respect. And then so I repeated myself, but differently. I said, well, are you sure that you can focus on what you need to do for your 9 to 5, but also focus on this? And she was
Mhm.
like, I sure can. That was her tone, all of that. That was exactly how she said. And I'm like, okay, we're not going to get emotional. We're going to move on. That's what I did. Was focusing
Mhm.
again, keeping it business. Don't get emotional, keep it business. As long as the business is good, okay, she's saying she can multitask, let's see if she can do it. Um, she did fine through the recording, and then at the end, where during the recording there was a lot of distraction, so I got frustrated about that even more so. So towards the end, I was like, well, let's just come up with some topics. I would like 10 because she asked me how many I wanted. I was like, I would like 10, but I'll settle with 5. Let's just do something so we can have something to start with, right? And then we can end it for today, is pretty much what I said. And then that's where
Okay.
shortly after, I went into that zone of zoning out, and then it just went to hell from there. And, yeah, it's wearing
But
down.
you know what I noticed? I
What?
noticed that when we're talking about letting them go again,
Yeah.
okay? And when it comes to business, you were able, even though there were signs, you
Mhm.
were able to still keep this person in your life
Yeah.
without cutting them out.
Yeah.
But when it comes to personal,
Mhm.
personal relationships, are you the same with that? Are you as forgiving as you are with your business relationships?
No, no, I'm not. I used to be, 'cause it was what, 2, 3 years ago, I was, like, dancing back and forth between I'm talking about even older relationships than the last 10 years, and it was like, I learned with that that when it's over, it's most times it's over. There are some cases where you can rekindle a friendship or even relationship with someone, and it works out for the rest of your life. I don't know how common that is, but I learned in my journey, 'cause it's relative, everybody's journey is different, that it doesn't quite work that way, and that some people we're just in different spaces and places, or we have fundamentally um excuse me, we have fundamental differences. And so those core values and principles are not lining up. And a lot of times that in the personal relationship realm, and one of those goes back to respect for me. When you don't respect me, when you treat me like I'm somebody you passed up on the street and they stepped on your shoe, like you just treat them like dirt, you don't know them, like no respect, that's a deal breaker. So when it comes to deal breakers, it's like, no, there's no dance in between that. Especially
Mhm.
with me, I'm very big on communication. Even though in some instances it hasn't really shown through as much as it really exists in my life. I wish I had
Mhm.
my best friend on here. My mom knows me and Gazelle are like thick as thieves. And so we've even had a not a blow up, but like we've had a major disagreement, and but we're very much in the same wavelength, and we were able to communicate through those really big differences. Thankfully, they weren't fundamentally different, but it was like a really just a miscommunication that just kind of escalated, but we were still able to communicate in a way where we weren't putting the other person down, we weren't bucking the other person, we weren't doing anything that came off as hostile, aggressive. And honestly, I've had experiences where it's just plain out hateful. Um,
Mhm.
and so when it's a relationship like that, absolutely, I'm more so open to that.
Okay, so basically, what I got out of it, because that's my question. That was my question in the beginning.
Mhm.
What are some ideas or things that I can do to help me make that disconnect?
I completely did not give you anything. I just
Actually, you
let
did.
somebody
I've been
tell
writing it down. I'll tell you exactly what you gave me.
you.
What you
Okay.
gave me is this is a recap. What you gave me is deal breakers number one, that I
Okay.
better have some boundaries. And once
Yes.
you break the deal, once you break the deal, cut it off. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, that
Stand
was
on
one.
it.
The other one is mental health. Make sure that I'm healthy mentally with the relationship.
Mhm.
Okay. So I appreciate these ideas. Another thing that you gave me was the move away. If you move away, that can help you separate yourself from um, those people
That
that you need to
environment.
let them go.
Yeah, that
Okay.
environment. Mhm.
And one that I'm going to say this one is don't be apologetic. And when you said that, what I got out of don't be apologetic is
Mhm.
quit making excuses to stay in the
Yes.
relationship.
Okay, here's the thing, y'all, that y'all don't know. She makes the most excuses for people that it really pisses me off. Because even with like, I mean, she just gave many examples. She's asking me questions, but this is really what she be challenging me on. Like she's being real light about it right now. But she challenges me on that. And I appreciate it because it gives me perspective. It gives me more to think about before I come to a conclusion on a decision. Because I do like to be very much sure when I make a decision. I don't want to dance back and forth. I think my friend Gazelle told me, she was like, you lose credibility when you do that. When you make a decision and then you go back on it. Stand on
Mhm.
what you're going to do. If you're not
Okay.
sure, wait. but stand
Okay.
on what you're gonna do, because when you go back and forth, you lose credibility. I promise. Gazelle is a freaking genius. Literally, unspoken freaking genius. We talked about this today because I talked to her earlier, and she was like, "I'm not creative. Like, I don't know why people come to me about creative things." I was like, "Actually, no, you are, because I'm telling you, a lot of issues that I've had, and I've come to her about it because I have hit the wall on being creative on how to get out of it. She, like, I'm telling you, she will find ways out of no way. She
Yeah,
will metaphorically pick up a street and find another route." Like, if that makes any sense. It's
for
like
real.
she will find the Underground Railroad. Like, it is mind blowing where you be like, there's no way we can get out of this. There's no way. We just have to, we got to kill the evidence. We have to destroy it. And she's like, no, because see, behind the evidence is this barrel of blueprints that you missing because you were stuck here. You didn't look behind. You didn't do your due diligence and make sure you looked around the corners and in the crevices and look underneath that. You pull the rug back, it's a whole, like, secret hiding spot. And you just like, "Where did she get this? Like, where did she get these things?" And you just be like, "What? Why am I feeling so dumb?" But here's another thing, surround yourself with people that make you feel dumb, because that's how you also learn. And I learned a lot
Okay.
from her. Like, I've taken a lot of things that she's given me, and I've been able to apply it to many different areas of my life. One of the biggest things is having control over your emotions, like the way that I've observed her handle conversations where somebody gets loud, where somebody is screaming upset. And she was like, "Okay, are you done? Because we still have to reach a solution. And the solution is either going to be this, this, and this. Now I want to work with you, but I can't work with you like that. So I need you to gain your composure and meet me at the table so that we can get these decisions made." And I was just like, because me, I'm an energy matcher. So you turn up, I just want to turn up too, because I'm just like, I'm mad too. Like,
And that's exactly what I be telling you, that it ain't always good to be an energy matcher,
no, it's not.
because see, you're matching energy with people that are not on your level.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody or anything like that. By no means am I saying that. But what I can say is that as you get older, you do gain experience if you want it. Now, there are some people just as old as I am that are not experienced because they didn't want it.
Yeah.
But if you want it, you'll gain that experience as you get older,
Yeah.
you know. So
Mm.
I definitely appreciate you sharing these things with me. And I just want to, next time that we talk, I want to know how, just like, you say for your business that with what has happened, you're going to slow down,
Yeah.
right? You're going to slow it down and
Regroup.
take a closer look, or maybe just kind of just step back and look at it, is what you were kind of like referring to.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage you when it comes to your business relationships and your personal relationships, level them off. Have that same energy that you have with your business, where you're giving chance after another chance before you actually really come to the decision to cut it off. Don't be so quick to cut off your personal relationships quicker than your business relationships. I'm just encouraging you that to somewhere have that medium
Yeah.
where you can do both, where you don't have to cut them off just because they made one mistake,
Yeah.
but able to talk to them, not make excuses,
Mhm.
but because I'm, like you said, the excuse queen.
Well, it really.
But don't make excuses, but
Mhm.
do make conversation. before, because it needs to, you could talk to any psychologist, therapist, psychiatrist, and they'll tell you that talking about it is best. But
Yeah.
when you cut it off, that means all the talking's done.
Mhm. Yeah. For me, for sure.
So,
I'm
so
done.
I'm just saying,
I'm letting them go.
that, mental health,
Yeah.
you already said it's big for you.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So when you cut people off, sometimes that can affect you mentally. Even though you say, "Oh no, I'm not talking to him no more. I'm done with him." Blah 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 blah. But every now and then, God's going to bring it back up on your heart, and your heart is connected. It is really connected with your mind.
Yeah.
It really is.
I agree.
So I'm just encouraging you that to somewhere come into a medium where the people in your personal relationships receive that same type of respect that you have for your business. Just encouraging.
Okay. I'm gonna sit with that. For real. I'm gonna sit with that. And then we'll talk more about it. But
Okay.
on that note, guys, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you are updated on what drops next. And until next time, bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.